Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their thought process? Rest assured, you are not alone. The world is slowly waking up to what you already know inside, yet can't quite verbalize. Welcome to the Spiritual Dope Podcast, the show that answers the questions you never even knew to ask, but needed the answers to. Questions about you, this world, the people in it. Most importantly, how do I proceed now moving forward? We don't claim to have all the answers, but we sure do love living in the question. Time for another hit of Spiritual Dope with your host, Brandon Henley. Let's get right into today's episode.
Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I am on here today with Dr. Barbara DALLE PEZZE. She is a leadership coach, international speaker, author, and seminar leader with over 18 years of global experience. She inspires individuals, entrepreneurs, and leaders to reconnect with their most profound and authentic essence, discover their purpose, and bring about positive change in their lives and in the world. She is also the author of a new book, The Unexpected Gift, which reveals the inspiring true life story of one woman's journey to self-discovery and renewal after the implosion of her marriage and her experience of creating anew her life and career. Barbara, I think we got introduced from Tom Palladino. Is that correct? Is that Tom Palladino that introduced us? That name doesn't sound familiar?
It doesn't sound familiar. Nope.
Well,
Nope.
I thought that's how we connected. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter, I guess, at this point now, because we're here, we're together, and we're having this conversation. So I always like to start these off with the idea, right, that we are kind of conduits for source energy, right? Universal source energy, God, whatever you want to call it. And that you and I are having this conversation. You and I will understand what we're talking about, maybe, right? You're having one conversation, I'm having one conversation. And then, the person listening is going to pick up on something entirely different. There's going to be a communication that they're going to get that can only be delivered through you to them right now. What's that message?
Well, first of all, it is a feeling of gratitude for being here and having this opportunity to have this conversation with you, and whatever we are going to talk about, I'm sure the listener will find something that resonates with them. So that's gratitude first. And then there is also in this moment the desire to contribute. And I think that this is the best, at least for me and in my experience, a great disposition to have when we start a conversation. So gratitude and a desire to contribute.
I love that. The desire to contribute. A lot of people will stand back because they don't feel like they have something that they can contribute. They don't see what they have to offer as valuable enough, given the situation that they're looking at. And they may not think that they can have an impact. What do you say to that person?
Oh, no, I would say that we are so special, each one of us. We are so unique that we always have something to contribute to. Actually, I would also share that I was reading once, I love to read about mystics. And I was reading about Teresa of Avila and also Caterina of Siena. They are two very important mystics in the Middle Ages. And they were saying that we are so powerful and we have so much to give that even when we intersect just passers-by, a smile that we can give to them, or even the way we look at them, can change their lives. That's how much we can contribute. So just passing by somebody, we impact their lives. And then if we take a chance and want to share something that it is important to us, that becomes already such a powerful contribution, because as you said at the beginning, you don't know how the person who is listening to you is going to interpret and relate what you say to their lives. So I think that we are a bundle of gift potential. and so it is always good to be able to offer a little bit of this bundle of gift potential to people that we intersect or that are in our life for a moment, for a few days, for years, for a lifetime.
For sure. So, I enjoy that take. Two pieces on that. First of all, those mystics, are those both female mystics?
Yes, they are
Yes.
female
Yes, like you don't hear a whole lot about female mystics. I know you spent some time in Asia Pac, as we call it, right? Asia Pacific, and even in Buddhism, which we Westerners like to think is like this big, open, vast thing. Like females really weren't allowed to participate like at some of the higher levels, and therefore, like the reason we don't hear about maybe some amazing Zen females is simply because they were kept out, right? And I think that the story is similar in mysticism, regardless of kind of which space you spend time in. Is that what you found to be true for yourself? What were some of your findings, I guess, in that space?
No, I never thought about it from that perspective, because as a matter of fact, several of the mystics that I read, I love to read biographies. They are female and they are from the Middle Age, so probably they had a different rhythm. A life was slower, and they had time, and actually there was also their calling to write and to write books. And so we have quite a number of books that I know of female mystics, actually. Their purpose was to contribute and give us a little bit of their experience to other people that were living in the world, so to speak. And so they did have a chance to write their message and their experience and to share it with the world. And actually, I really enjoyed reading many of those female authors. Actually, maybe today would be different. Maybe what you're saying for this century would be probably more appropriate, in a sense that, yes, we might think in this way, but in relation to women that lived in the Middle Age and they were monks and nuns, they had the time to dedicate their life to writing and to write to people for people. I'm thinking while I'm talking to you.
No, yeah.
I never looked at it from that angle, actually.
Sure.
For the Middle Age.
for sure, right? I mean, and I just, like I said, I know that you've also spent some time in Asia Pacific, and my guess would be you've been immersed in some of the Buddhist culture, right? While you sat in there.
I was in the Asia Pacific, and I was in Hong Kong many years, and in China, and in south of China, mainland China, and Singapore. And there are very different philosophy of lives and religions over there. So it was not that there was that feeling and that sense that we are all Buddhist, and so that mystics atmosphere. Actually, Hong Kong is the New York of Asia, has been for so long, right?
For sure,
so
right.
You could experience certainly the different religions and philosophy of lives over there. So, but I imagine that what you are thinking of is more a mystical and meditative life, that in places like Beijing or Hong Kong or Singapore, they are somehow a little bit on the backhand of the experience.
No, I get that.
Having said that, what is interesting is that in those places there is kind of a thirst for spirituality, and so there are like you can find those spaces within this big megalopolis where you can experience a little bit of what you are saying, but you do need to go and look for it, because what pops up first is the New York experience, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You gotta kind of you gotta be on the lookout for it, right? That's got to be something that you're actually looking for. And then this idea of contribution, you get that sense of, I feel that you get that sense of contribution due to some of your upbringing. You want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I am originally from Italy. And so Italy is a Christian and Catholic countries for the majority, at least the roots and the culture is entrenched of Christianity and Catholicism. And it is an important value, the contribute to the life of others. It is definitely a value there. My family has always taught me that, and for sure, I was brought up within that culture. Having said that, the profession I am in, so the coaching profession and teaching and training, it is a profession that it is based on the desire to contribute profoundly to the lives of people that you come into contact with. So I would say that it is a big motivator in what I do and in my life, the possibility of contribute to the growth of people, to having people learning more about themselves and how they can better leverage their resources inside of themselves in order to build and create a better life for themselves and the people around them, and if possible to the world at large. So I think that contribution is one of the foundations of happiness, I would dare to say as well.
100%. No, I absolutely agree. I personally don't feel like I contribute enough, right? And when I do contribute, I get that sense of being a part of the greater sense of all the things, and that I just feel better. I mean, you can't really. There's not a whole lot of a great explanation for that. So what I was trying to hit on, I guess, there, sorry for not being clear, was I guess your family was active in the anti-kidnapping piece, right?
Yes.
And so my guess would be, again, just kind of, and from checking out a couple of your other podcasts, that might have an impact on your desire to contribute as well.
Yes. So yes, when I was in my early 20s, a family friend was kidnapped by the mafia. And so my father and the community of our town decided to put together a movement that was the first and the big anti-kidnapping movement in Italy. And they managed to with the help of the police and the government and everybody, they managed to get several people freed from this kidnapping. And I was late in my early 20s when this happened, and I had the privilege, I would say, to really be surrounded by this and breathe into this and see the collaboration of the community and see the impact, and that something, a seed of goodness that you want to do together with anger for something that was wrong and was done, actually was able to create this movement all over Italy. And that generated in me the desire of contributing. At the time, I didn't even know yet what I was and how I would have contributed, but I knew and I felt that was too important. And so in every action I took since that moment onward, I was looking for that feeling, for the sensation, for that. I was following that desire. I wanted to contribute as I have experienced my father and the people of my town did in a very crucial moment in the life of our friends, because they were family friends. And that stayed with me, and it is still there with me, because it is effective, it is powerful. And when people are really united for something good and to achieve something good, what can be achieved is immense. And so that definitely was an experience that shaped who I am and how I live my life in the world, actually. Yeah, that was very powerful, actually.
Yeah, 100%, right? I mean, that's the seed, right, from in you to continue to look for contribution, and to me, again, would be why that is so important to you, right? Having seen that, having seen the effects of it, and having been a part of it, you know what that feels like, right? And you know what it looks like to gather these people together to do some good.
Yeah, and also I would also add that I could witness how easy it becomes when people get together to achieve a same goal. Things simply flow. of course, you do need to do your part, to put in action a lot of things. But once all those things are in place, then the situation moves forward, and forces and resources are found, and everything seems to flow so smoothly to achieve that goal. And of course, behind that smoothness, there is the willingness and the passion and the heart of many people. So that was a great lesson, and I'm very grateful that I had that experience. Of course, while I was experiencing that, there were people that were suffering more because, of course, those whose sons or daughters or relatives were kidnapped, of course, that was very painful for them. And in any painful experience, there is, again, somebody that is learning something. And even the life of this little girl that was kidnapped has contributed so much to who I am today and my life today. Back to what we were saying at the beginning, for those who think that they might not have anything to give or to share, right? So even if you don't know, you are contributing so much to the life of others. So that's probably something that we want to remember and keep in mind very often.
Just the very little things that we can do, and just even the small amount of contact time can have a lasting impression and a long-term effect on somebody.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about what you've got your doctorate in, right? So, Doctor of Ontology, if I done my research okay. And why don't you go ahead and share with the audience what that's a study of, if they're not familiar?
Yes. So when we say ontology, we are thinking philosophy. It is within the realm of philosophy, and it is the part of philosophy that studies being. So the structure of being, and therefore, in my particular case, the take I had on that was what are the structures of the human being according to the philosophical perspective? How do we work? How are we in the world? How do we connect? How do we relate with what is in the world? And that is a very interesting insight, because philosophy goes deep. And so my experience while doing this PhD was really allowing myself and my brain and my reasoning to walk path that I never explored. And so I could literally feel my brain opening up new neural pathways, because I was thinking in ways, of course, led by these philosophers, thinking in ways that normally we are not stimulated in thinking. So thinking about who are we in the world, what we represent, what do we do when we actually live, how do we interact, what we are actually interacting with, who is the other person in front of you, and all these elements that I found very, very fascinating. And I found them essentials, because before studying philosophy, I started another field of study. I studied architecture for a couple of years, but and I liked it kind of, but the reason I changed eventually for philosophy is because I realized that I needed to learn more about not how to build buildings and homes where people live in, and how they are structured, and what are the materials that constitute those things, how do you put them together and create. While I was studying that, I was actually thinking, wait a minute, do I know about the human beings that are going to inhabit those buildings? Do I know what they are made of? How do they work? What they are about? And I realized that I was more interested in learning about human beings, and then how to build them a home. And so I changed, and then my path took me to all the way to do this in-depth research in my PhD on ontology.
I think it's pretty entertaining how you went from, this external structure, right? How are these external structures made, and how do they impact coming from the outside in? And you're like, wait a second, I want to go to the internal structure. right? I want to go see how this structure is laid out internally, and work my way from the inside out, right? And that's just my brief perception of kind of your lifelong journey, all synopsed into all that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
but
right.
but the idea too. So who are these philosophers? I have two questions. Is this ontology more of a Western study? Is it an Eastern and Western? And then maybe who were a couple of the truly essential ones, or who were the ones that had the greatest impact on you?
So there is one philosopher that particularly impacted my life, which is Martin Heidegger, and which is a German philosopher, 20th century German philosopher, and my PhD is on his philosophy, and Meister Eckhart, which is a German mystic. And I put the two of them in dialogue on the concept of abandonment, in German Gelassenheit, and their perspective and the way I elaborated their concept of abandonment, which is actually a concept of let go and be open to life, ended up meeting with Chinese philosophy at the end. That would have been the continuation of my research, right? But it was very interesting to see how the West meets the East, actually, in the way of thinking through philosophy, mysticism, and we end up encountering also China. So that was quite interesting. So Martin Heidegger, I would say, and Meister Eckhart.
And I think that it's also interesting that you've got this to let go and meeting with life, right? Because your book has to do with I would say something similar. You went through, you felt like you were in a decent part in your life, a good part, coming up to a flourishing part. And then next thing you know, your husband's like, hey, let's get a divorce. And meanwhile, you're like, my first guess is like, initially you're holding on for dear life. You're like, no, this isn't how this is going to work. At least mentally, internally, like, no. Everything's great. But like now you're at a point where you've let go, you've used that material to grow yourself, and you shared some of that material in this book. Let's talk a little bit about the book and some of the materials that you shared and what you found in there.
Yeah, well, first of all, the paradox was that when I finished my PhD and my marriage imploded, actually I just finished a doctorate on letting go. And here it is, I am immediately asked to experience that let go deeply and profoundly, and I would say completely. So that was quite radical and brutal as an experience, also because, as you said, it was out of the blue, and it was definitely not what I wanted. It was the book, which is The Unexpected Gift. Everything was unexpected to the end, which is the unexpected gift. So the path, the process, and the ending, if you can say that there is an ending. It is the story of my 15 years experience in Asia, actually Asia, Australia, and Singapore. And it starts with, it is triggered by my marriage and the breakup of the marriage. But in fact, it becomes a story of how do you discover yourself. So I thought I knew myself. I thought I had my life figured it out. I had my values. I had my purpose. And suddenly this out of the blue element completely destroyed everything. And so I had to find again who I am. What am I standing for? What do I want? What does my life look like now? Because what happened basically destroyed all the narratives and the paradigms I was used to consider valid, and that they were actually at the foundations of who I was and of my life. So it was like really suddenly find yourself in the desert, inside and out, and having to figure out what do I do now. What do I plant? How do I water the soil? How do I move forward? There is desert in front of me. Everything is gone behind me. So what do you do? Where do you start? And the book is the stories of my journey. And so all the inner steps and outer steps I took to rebuild, recreate, and reconnect with myself and the new life that was awaiting me in the future, and that clearly wanted to emerge, but it needed some digging and some experience. It was quite intense. And while I was going through this, I was looking for books that would tell me that it would have been all right, that it is possible, that there is a life after this. And I could not find any. And so I decided, you know what? Let me write down a few of these things that I'm experiencing. And until I reached a point where I decided, okay, let's do a book. Let's write a book because I want to speak from the future. And now I consider that my book speaks from the future because I went through that and I'm here with, and this is the future. So for people that are in this traumatic situation, being it the divorce, being it challenges that have nothing to do with divorce, but they challenge who you are and your worth and what you stand for, they can see if that there is a way. And mine, the one I write in the book, has been what I have found that worked. And so I wanted to share, and I wanted to give my contribution on these as well.
All comes back to contribution, doesn't it? So what I think is great is what you're saying. We identify ourselves so much with the relationship that we have, especially with the significant other, because we're building a life together, right? You're building this life together. We've got this picture scoped out, our future scoped out in one way or another. And then when this disruption comes, that whole thing just dissolves, falls away, falls apart. And now you start to question your own identity. You're like, wait a second, how did I mess this whole thing up? Right. And then we start blaming ourselves, right? Again, like, you know, I don't know if you said that. Like, I know I'd be like, how did I mess this whole thing up? Where should I have made a left? Where should I have made a right? Yeah. And or is this just our path? Right? Is this just our path? And now you've got a cultivate, you know, you're talking about this, you're in a desert, and it sounds like you've got to cultivate a new sense of self.
You have to cultivate a new sense of self, a new sense of what's possible, and a new sense of responsibility. Because my ex-husband kept saying, "Oh, you did nothing wrong. It is me." But I wanted to have done something wrong, because if I had done something wrong, then I could do better next time, right?
Right. I'm gonna need a 360 feedback on this thing. You know, it's pulling our friend, pull everybody in. Who else was there?
Exactly.
I get you.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you figure out what you want to. You do need to think really outside the box that you did not even realize you were in. And you need to find a new way of imagining your future beyond the narratives you have always thought of.
Well, I want to stop there for a second, right? Because I mean, you know, you bring up like this box that you didn't even know you were in, just talking about our own limited senses of self, right? Our own limited senses. It stops here. It stops with this story that we've been telling ourselves, right?
Yeah.
In the relationship, and just to kind of continue in this whole idea, right? Like, so ontology, contribution, you know, taking this relationship that you've gone through, and you're deeply, mysticism, studying Eckhart and these mystics and this philosophy, and you're a coach for the business world. Right. And I think that this pairs really well with the idea of what spiritual dope is about. It's about how do we merge those two, right? How do we take all this, you know, the spiritual sense of well-being, these maybe ideal philosophies, and how do we apply it to the real world? And I want to come back to the beginning here, because it was that sense of contribution, and you were talking about what it's like to get everybody together, right? When you're for the kidnapping group, right? And how that all worked. To me, what you were saying there pairs so easily and readily to the business world, right, to corporate culture. Because if you can get everybody to buy into the vision, you can get everybody to say, hey, I'm contributing, I'm doing my part, I do have something to contribute, and I can see what the vision is. I mean, it pairs. So is that,
Yeah.
did you see the same?
For the work I do, the leadership work I do, and I do on a global scale, and the level of depth at which I meet my clients is such that I meet them in their humanity. And so that's in the fact that they, before being managers, directors, CEOs, talents, before that, everybody is a human being. And once you have enhanced and discovered and unleash what is this humanness, then there is no job to be done anymore, in the sense, and then people are free to really express fully their talents. And we all have so many talents, but we need to be able to free them, to see them first, and then release them. And so what I do, and how do we bring together mysticism, ontology, philosophy into the business world? And to tell you the truth, while I was going through this situation, I also was leading a research cluster on philosophy, therapy, and medicine, and I was researching on pain and suffering. And right then and there, working with the oncology department of the hospital, I was finding elements that I was in Hong Kong that I thought they were so important to be brought into the business world. And so I bridged that those worlds as well. So the medicine and pain and suffering into corporation and into finance. And again, because people in the at work, they suffer, they have conflict, they are experiencing deep, profound suffering sometimes, and sometimes very often, right? And so approaching my clients, making sure that inner conflicts and the suffering that is not expressed is actually resolved and transformed, as what freed them to be the extraordinary leaders or managers or team members that they need to be in corporations in order for corporations to thrive. And so the way I work at the core of humanness. And that doesn't matter, right? If you are in a corporation, if you are a lawyer, if you are a mom, if you are a podcaster, it doesn't really matter. You are a human being, and that's where we want to work, because the resources, the stronger resources are there. The technicalities of how to be in finance, how to be a salesperson, how to be a stockbroker, that you learn. Those are techniques, and you choose to learn them, right? But first, I work on the humanity, and I invest in human capital. That's what I do. And so philosophy pertains to human capital. Mysticism pertains to human capital. All these art pertains to human capital. And so that's the level at which I work. And also, that's also why my experience, which starts from a divorce, it is a leadership experience, right? Your life experience is your leadership experience. And in the book, there are foundations of this leadership, just because you learn how to lead and lead yourself first, at the best in the best possible way.
For sure. Give me. I'm really curious too. The suffering that is not expressed. How?
Yeah.
What is something that you do? What are some exercises? What is you find the financial guy. He's suffering. He's not expressing it. How do we help him to express it? What are some tools? What are some ways that we can help in that space?
I can share an example. When you find, and maybe you don't need to be a coach to notice this, but when maybe you have a friend, or if you think about somebody that keeps complaining about something and is very animated in complaining about something, and it is angry about it, that hides behind it. To me as a coach, when I hear you complaining so much, there is some pain and suffering behind that. So first of all, I need you to become aware that this is something that you are not expressing in the best possible way for you. Because when I complain about something, I am giving away my power. So what I do, I help you to see, first of all, that you are giving away your power. We look into what is it that you are complaining about, that, and what is it to you? What is it that you really mean to say? And this is from a cognitive perspective first, but then it is also expressing emotionally, because cognitively you can say millions of things and yet you keep complaining, keep being angry, and so you're not really expressing pain and suffering, and it is an emotional experience, right? So you need to let your emotions free. That's why we use body work. When I do work on this, you use your body, you express through your body. I use the voice, so singing and being able to find really the sound of your voice, deep sound, deeper sound, and be able to express it in a loud voice for a strong tone, because that's scary and that is liberating at the same time. But we are not used to express who we are, even in suffering so deep inside. So I kind of help my client in this example first to realize that there is some suffering that he or she is expressing through complaining in this example, right? And then we go and look behind that. So what is it that actually hurts you and that you are complaining about? And often it is not really what they are complaining about. It's something deeper. And that's where the work then starts. Okay, let's express it with movement. Let's express it with the voice. And then once that is released, and therefore the person does not have a block anymore, then we can start working. And that's when the liberation and the expression transforms into something that it is, okay, now what do I actually want to build? What do I want myself to be? What I want my profession, what I want my life to be, or how do I want to show up at work instead? So it is a matter of unpacking first.
So
does it make sense?
It does make sense, right? I've got two kind of reflections on that, and I'm always reminded. I think it was like I'm sure somebody said it beforehand, but there's a Jack Canfield line that talks about when you complain, if you're not complaining to the person that can do something about it, it's kind of worthless, right? Like complain to the person that can help you, do something about it. Otherwise, you're just doing kind of what you said. You're feeling this frustration, this anger, this whatever, and it's just a feeling that you carry around with you, and there's really no value in that, right? And then the second part to me is the way that you're talking. It's almost like it's almost like a knotted muscle, right? When you complain, Absolutely. It's like a kind of like a knotted muscle that until you can release that, you've got a whole bunch of energy caught up in that, and until you release it, then you can't really do anything, right? It's kind of useless.
Yeah. And oftentimes it has happened to me that, again, moving from the outside to the inside, what needs to be released has nothing to do with what the person is complaining about, right? It is more a desire to be maybe just aligned. I need to be aligned with my value and what I am doing, the work I am doing, the way I'm relating to these clients or to the board is not aligned with who I actually feel I am. And so the work is, okay, so how do you evolve so that you can be in the same board meeting and not feeling this conflict, but being aligned within yourself, your purpose, your mission, and expressing it to the board so that you actually help the organization to move forward, and you are not always involved in this inner fight and in this inner conflict. So that is what often has happened to me in my coaching.
Yeah, for sure. Whatever that person's focused on is really keeping them from being their best, right? I mean, that's just kind of what it boils down to, even if it's not directly related to. Again, you remove this blockage over here, and you can redirect all that energy into the thing that you're really trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always look at even the word coach, right? And I always think of coaxing, right? As a coach, all what you're trying to do is really coax the best of that person out of them so that they can see it for themselves and they can carry it on forward. Would you say that?
I would say that I like to think of myself as a sponsor. When I say coach, I am a sponsor. What does it mean for me is that I can notice your potential that isn't expressed. I can notice your talents. I can notice where you need to be set free. And I help you to, I believe in you, I trust you, and I help you to actually be free, to express fully yourself and to improve who you are and to actually be who you are. That is my job. It is like a gate opener. But a gate opener that trusts and believes strongly in you and what you can achieve. So it is really, from where I stand, is a position where you hold a space for the other person to express fully. And not only that, but you can see further than the person himself or herself. You can help them see what they are not seeing. And you can, at least you can point them towards something that they are not noticing about themselves that is a talent, that is a resource. And so that they can actually become aware and leverage that and integrate that in who they are and the way they conduct themselves. So coaching as sponsoring really you, your talent, your resources, your potentials, and what you can be and achieve.
Do you make them T-shirts, like little sponsored T-shirts? I feel like you should. Actually,
sponsored by,
sponsored by.
Yeah, that could be a good idea.
It'd be a fun one, right? For at least client gifts, right? Whatever it is they're into. I like the idea of being a sponsor, and I think that definitely resonates, and I like the approach there. So we're at this kind of point, right? That unless there's anything else that you feel like you want to cover, I'm going to go ahead and ask a couple questions for you.
Please go ahead.
Good, right. So like I said, spiritual speed dating, right? At the back end of this, so most of the people that are tuning in, they're seekers. They're looking for just exactly that. How can they express what's inside of them outside, authentically, in alignment, just in a lot of ways that you've been speaking about. So some ways that they may be able to figure it out is by these questions. Is Barbara right for you? So so let's see. Is current religion serving its purpose, Barbara?
When we say religion, what are we thinking about? Monotheistic religions, so the big ones.
The top three.
The top three. Okay, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Are they serving their purpose? I think that there are many people that find in religions a great tool for them to live a better life, feel better, and be a better human being. So I think for many people they do. I believe that religions could do a little bit better, as we all could, in terms of speed up a little bit their evolution in order to embrace some challenges that today are here, and maybe when the religions were born, they were not there. But I would say that overall, they keep being very useful, especially for people that have based their lives on religions.
I like that. What is one area you feel like they could evolve faster in?
Well, for example, and I'm thinking about Catholicism in particular, because that's where I come from. I believe that there is a role that women are not given and are not taken, that I think the church need to open up to.
You're saying a female pope?
I don't know if I don't know. I don't know if I would go to the Pope immediately, because probably will take a little bit. But before getting to the Pope, yeah, I think that there are roles within the Catholic Church that needs women more than men. Maybe before for 2,000 years there have been always men in those positions. So I think that the church would benefit from a presence of more women.
Yeah, I think that's fair. As you know, so this is your study space, right? This to me, this is in your wheelhouse. What is the greatest quality humans possess?
The greatest quality humans possess. Wow, we have many. I would say that maybe the curiosity, curiosity is a, I don't know if it is the greatest, but it is a great quality that now we need, especially because we are faced with so much diversity. And so unless we are curious to understand and learn about diversity, we are not moving forward as a community, a global community. So maybe a quality that I think is important and it is great right now is curiosity.
So
Be
sounds like,
curious.
yeah, it sounds like that's something that could be cultivated a little bit more, and be something that most humans could apply more often, and we could improve.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome. So listen, Dr. Barbara, I've enjoyed this. Thanks for coming on today. Where should people, first of all, like who would you say is your ideal client? Like, let's say somebody's listening in today, you know, who do you think should be reaching out to you?
I think it are people that went through important challenges in their life, been it in their personal life, been it in their professional life, and they feel that they have reached their a glass ceiling and they cannot see what's possible next and how to reach the next level and how to break through and tap into more resources that they have. So when they are in that point, then they call me, because I partner with them and I really accompany them to reach their full potential and create their purpose, find their purpose. Maybe they are already successful, they have achieved a lot, and they ask themselves, okay, so now what? I have money, I have a status, I have a family, and maybe I'm 45. So what's next? What is next? So that's when I come in.
That's when they get sponsored by Barbara. The
Yeah. And
yeah,
they get a T-shirt.
they get a T-shirt, and then I like that too. That you're saying more resources, but when you're saying more resources, it sounds to me like you're saying these innate resources that you help them to discover
Yes.
and apply for themselves. That's fantastic. That's
Which, by the way, they are inner resources, and then they turn out to become outer resources, because when the inner resources are ignited, then we find ways to get outside resources.
expression, right? Like full on expression. You know,
Absolutely.
where should we send people to come find out more about you, and where can they get your book?
My book, they can get it on Amazon, amazon.com, both in Kindle and paperback version. And I think the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn. I am quite active on LinkedIn recently, and also on my website, which is just my name, www.barbaradallepezze.com, which nobody will remember, but
They'll remember it. They'll remember it. Right. We'll have a link there at least, and so they won't have to remember it. That's what the internet's for.
Yes.
Short-term memory. Barbara, thank you so much for showing up today. I appreciate the conversation. I love what you're doing. I love your story, kind of how you got there, the journey, and how you are expressing it yourself. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here, Brandon. It was really, really a great honor to have this conversation with you. So thank you so much.